Waiting is the most expensive decision a director ever makes when the limited company starts to struggle. Now, if you have got HMRC bills that are mounting up, or you're taking on personally guaranteed debt just to get through another month, I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to take a breath, because in this video, I'm going to show you what insolvency actually means. Now, there are 4 signs that your company is insolvent. I'm going to talk about what options you've actually got, because some of these options are the opposite of what most directors imagine they are. Now, most directors think insolvency is something that actually just happens to them. You know, a formal process. You've got an insolvency practitioner turning up at your business. And until that day comes, you tell yourself you're just going through a bit of a ropey period in the business. You've been there before. Now, insolvency legally, it is a financial state. It's not a process. It's something your company is, not something that happens to the company. And the moment your company becomes insolvent, you as the director, your legal duties change. Now, you might realise this or not. That doesn't matter. Like literally overnight, a switch gets flicked. Now, there are 2 legal tests. Now, if you fail either one of these, your company is insolvent. You don't even need to fail both tests. Now, the first one, it's the cash flow test. Dead simply, can your company pay its debts as they fall due? Right now, as wages fall due, as your VAT bill falls due, as the PAYE falls due at the end of the month, your suppliers, the rent, when everything comes in, can you pay them on time? And if you can't, you fail the cash flow test. And then we've got the balance sheet test. But all that is you add up everything that your company owns. What cash at the bank have you got? What stock have you got? What equipment you've got? What money owed in is there? You add up everything, and then you add up everything that the company owes. Loans, HMRC, suppliers, overdrafts. And if the company owes more than it owns, you fail the balance sheet test too. Now, if you fail either test, legally, the company is insolvent. I spoke to a director last month. He'd been running a manufacturing business, and he genuinely thought, listen, things were basically okay. Done it for years and years, always ducked and dive. And I sat down with him and I went through these tests properly. And this guy had been failing the cash flow test for 9 months. Still taking orders, still paying who shouted the loudest. But here's the problem, he was still drawing money. He just didn't realise that he crossed the line a long, long time ago. And this is so important that you understand this, because the moment that you fail either test, that duty of yours shifts. You are now expected to act in the best interest of your creditors. So the key takeaway is this. Insolvency doesn't begin when somebody efficiently tells you you're insolvent. I mean, most directors, they're waiting for some kind of announcement. You know, there isn't one. The company that you run could have been insolvent for months and months and months before anyone has said a word out loud. So I want you to do this exercise right now. Can you pay your debts as they fall due? Does your company owe more than the company owns? And if either of those questions make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, the rest of the video's for you. And guess what? If those questions have made you feel uncomfortable and you need to talk to somebody, go to the description, the top link, put your details in. One of my team will call you today. We're free, we're independent. We've got like 765-star reviews on Trustpilot. And if you don't want to talk to somebody, I kind of get that, but you want some more information, the link below is a free guide to insolvency, and I just want your email address, okay? Anyway, moving on. So the problem, I think, is these tests I've been talking to you about, on paper, they look fairly simple. But you know, when you're in your business, in real life, you miss them. Because what insolvency feels like day to day doesn't look like the textbook version. So next I'm going to show you what insolvency actually looks like when you're running a business. Because there are warning signs that are very specific, but most directors will ignore them until it's too late. Now, if a company is insolvent, you usually feel it a long time before you ever mention that word, mention that I might have to close down. Now, the warning signs I see again and again are you're juggling creditors every week, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're deciding who gets paid based on who's actually shouting the loudest, not based on what they're actually due. Now, if your week revolves around avoiding phone calls, managing a queue of people that you owe, you are almost certainly failing the cash flow test. Another thing I see is HMRC's funding your business. Like, you are spending the VAT money. You've collected the VAT in, you've spent it, you're going to get back on track next quarter. Or you're not paying PAYE at the end of the month because you've just not got the money. The money is getting spent in the business. Listen, HMRC money isn't working capital. And if your business is only surviving because you're holding on to HMRC's money, you're not just behind on tax, you've got a massive cash flow problem that has already crossed into insolvency territory. You might be experiencing suppliers tightening the screws, so you're on stop at certain suppliers, credit terms are disappearing, they want cash on delivery. These are all signs. Now, when I sit down with directors who've been living with this, sometimes for years, the pattern's almost always the same. They don't always see it as insolvency. Some people have got that false, idea that that's business, that's day-to-day business. But listen, the line between stress and a rough patch and an insolvency is really important, because remember, like I said before, your duties as a director change the minute you fail the insolvency test. And the decisions that you make after insolvency get judged differently. Now, practical test for you, right? If you can tick 3 or more of the signs that I've just mentioned, right? I am willing to bet money with you that you're already insolvent and you're failing at least one of the 2 legal tests. Now, I promise you I've done this for a long time. Directors who come through this are the ones who spot signs early and they actually act. So listen, you know what insolvency is now, the legal definitions. You know what it looks like in real life. Next, I want to sort of flip this on its head, because the most common reaction directors have got at this point is fear, frightened to death. And it's the fear of, oh my gosh, I'm insolvent. It's the fear that causes people the real damage. Because insolvency isn't always the end. It's the moment that you finally get some options. Options like most directors do not even realize you can do this until somebody explains it to them. Now, for me, listen, I've been through an insolvency process. I'm not an insolvency practitioner. I've been doing this job a long time. I'm the managing director of what is definitely the #1 director advisory company in the UK. But I've been where you're at. And in the months before I dealt with my own business insolvency, listen, I carried it alone, never spoke to my missus about it, didn't talk to anyone about it. And I thought I was going to lose everything. So I kept going, I kept hoping, and I'm thinking, right, I'm going to turn myself around. And if you'd have come into my office back then, and you'd have asked me, how are you doing, Chris? I'd have gone, I'm sound. Yeah, it's going to turn around next month. I'd read that much personal development and listened to that much Tony Robbins. I was dangerous, okay? And I have sat down with thousands of directors since that time who were in the same place. They're convinced that if they go through insolvency, they're going to lose everything. And what I wish someone had have told me earlier, placing a company into insolvency does not mean losing everything. In 99% of cases, that is the worst case version of one particular path where an insolvency happens, you lose the house, you get made bankrupt. And that does happen, okay? But it's very rare. And directors who believe that stop themselves from acting at the exact moment acting would actually help them most. So let me show you what insolvency handled properly and early enough can actually unlock. The first thing it can do is actually give you business breathing room. Like there's a process called administration. And when you go into administration, you file a document at court, there is an automatic moratorium, and it's a legal freeze that stops creditor action against the company while a plan's getting put in place. So there's no more firefighting every single morning. It's a controlled process, okay? The second thing is insolvency is a proper route through unmanageable debt. Like if your business cannot survive, it can't recover, there could have been a market change, one of your customers could have been bust. Like most insolvencies are not the fault of directors. Like limited liability exists for a reason. And if the company's debts are realistically not going to be able to be paid, there is a framework called the Insolvency Act that allows you to deal with it formally. instead of being slowly crushed trying to trade your way out of something that can't be traded out of. It's not a loophole. It's exactly what the system was designed for. And the third thing, the most surprising thing for most directors, is there is a chance to rescue the parts of the business that still work, even if that limited company can't survive in its current form. You might have customers, contracts, staff, goodwill, plant, machinery, vehicles that still have some real value. And in lots of cases, these parts can be sold to the same director who sets up a new limited company through a pre-pack administration or a pre-pack liquidation. So the trading activity can continue while the old debt is dealt with separately. Now, it has got to be done properly. Please do not speak to any cowboy insolvency people that say, yeah, don't worry, be happy, okay? You've got to buy assets for a fair market value. Everything's got to be transparent, but it is a real option when timing is right. And then you're probably worried about personal guarantees that you've signed. So everyone seems to be signing personal guarantees over the last few years. You're thinking, oh my God, if my company closes, what am I going to do? Let me tell you, nearly every single personal guarantee can often be renegotiated and paid over a longer period of time. But you've got to have the right approach. You've got to have a plan. What I found on the other side of my insolvency, it wasn't the ending that I've been dreading. I promise it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Now, that's the type of thing that insolvency can do, if you act early enough. But next I want to show you the part that catches directors out more than anything else. And it's the cost of waiting. And it's not just adding more debt. It's the specific thing that creates personal consequences later, even for directors who were trying to do the right thing. Because when a director hears me say the cost of waiting, they assume I mean money, more debt, more interest, more penalties. Oh, listen, all real, yeah? But the cost that matters the most isn't pounds, it's options. Because when you're insolvent, time just doesn't just make things worse. What it does, the longer you leave it, the more options that you have disappear. And not gradually sometimes, it's very sharp. Something happens, a winding up petition comes, you can no longer put that business through an administration yourself. Things you could have done 6 weeks ago might not be available now. Things you can do today might not be possible tomorrow. And the director who gets hit the hardest are the ones who finally act, like literally they are pushed to the absolute edge and they discover the move they wanted to make has already been closed. I'll show you, this comparison happens all the time, right? Let's talk 2 directors, same trade, same size company, same level of pressure. Let's call them James and Paul. James acted early. He recognised the warning signs. He's juggling creditors. He's got HMRC breathing down his neck. He's putting personal money in every month to get through the month. And he didn't like what he was seeing. But he got advice early while there was still room to manoeuvre. And because he came in early, he had time. And time creates options. So we helped him tighten up how he was paying himself. So he's not taking dividends out of a company that can't afford to anymore. And building up a big director's loan account that he's going to be asked to pay back. We sort of allowed him to understand his position with HMRC, put out a cash flow, how long does he need to pay this, and have a conversation with HMRC early with a realistic time to pay arrangement. We also helped him build a clear fallback plan. So if things got worse, he knew what to do next. It was controlled, not chaotic. And we helped him look at his assets, the contracts, the teams, get evaluation done. So if a sale of the valuable parts of the business ever became necessary, it could be done properly and he knows what he's going to be paying for. He knows it's going to be a fair market value. And like a year later, business fails. But the way it failed was completely different. The viable parts were dealt with cleanly. His position had been planned around and his decisions were supported by advice and a proper paper trail. It's not made it worse. It's not took on irresponsible debt. He came out the other side bruised, but not broken, and he was able to move on. Let's think about Paul. Paul had the same warning signs. We all have the same warning signs, but he waited and he told himself, next big contract that comes and I'll sort this out. But it never landed. He told himself that late paying customers would catch up. They've been all right for years. They weren't. They went rogue on him. And he started making panic moves, paying whoever shouted loudest, clearing one problem by creating another, taking on personally guaranteed debts and ploughing it into a business that was never, ever going to survive. And he didn't get advice till the very last minute. Like, enforcement was well underway. And by the time he sat down with somebody, here is what had changed. His voluntary options had really narrowed. The situation was now driving him. He had a winding up petition that was live. The save the business version of the plan was not realistic anymore. Like, he'd sold assets to put money into the company. Goodwill had gone, staff had left, customers were getting unhappy. And his director's loan account had gone out of control because he kept taking money out of the company. Decisions that he made under pressure were definitely going to cause him problems later. And the personal borrowing he had taken on to get through, that's where his house was on the line. No happy ending there. Same business problems, same levels of debt. The only difference was when these people got advice. James moved when doors were still open. Paul waited until he was at the edge of the cliff and he got pushed off. And that's the cost directors don't see coming. It's not the more debt, it's not the more stress, it's the options collapse. So the takeaway is the cost of waiting isn't measured in pounds, it's measured in doors that are closing behind you while you're hoping for a turnaround. An insolvent business usually isn't a problem you can outwork, it's a problem you can outmaneuver, but only if you move while the options are still there. So please don't wait for this situation to get any worse. Now, if you found the video useful, please get in touch with us, okay? My name's Chris Worden, I'm from Director First. If you want to know more about how a pre-pack works, pre-pack administration, pre-pack liquidation, go and watch that video there. Thanks for your time.